You mentioned that we're going to have either thoughts or maybe feelings about money. Maybe they're hidden and we don't realize it. Maybe we realize it. We don't know what to do about it. But where do they come from? And why is money is often a big one for these subconscious kind of blocks. So why does that happen? Why does money often feel like a negative or a hard thing?
Yeah. Well, because as with so much of what we believe, obviously about anything, right? It's forming what I call like a part of our programming or a part of our paradigm, okay, which is this kind of mental program that's fixed in your subconscious mind, okay? And what we want to understand about that is that we didn't really create it, right? Like so much of what you and I believe that is fixed kind of deep down in that emotional part of us, because our subconscious mind is the emotional mind. So hence why our feelings are so linked to what's going on in there. Okay. So much of what we believe at that deep subconscious level that forms part of like our programmed beliefs about anything have actually just been passed down to us from one generation to the next, right? And or they have been modeled to us in the environment that we grew up in, the society that we live in. And so if you think about it in relation to, like, again, money in particular, you only have to, like, an example I give actually a lot at the moment, especially for women, is that actually you don't even have to go back that far to see just how much our world has changed in terms of our relationship with money, right? And I was horrified to discover not that long ago, I might add, that it wasn't until 1975, okay, that women, I think this is the same in the US, it's definitely the case in the UK, but I think it was very similar timing, if not the same timing over in the US. It wasn't until 1975 that women could open up a bank account in their own name or take out a
Oh my
loan without
goodness.
having their husband or their father sign for them, right?
Oh my goodness.
Right? That was the year I was born, Cheryl. So it's really meaningful to me because it just highlights, oh my gosh, knowing what I know about how our beliefs and our conditioning and how we feel about money actually are literally handed down, from one generation to the next to whoever, kind of has raised us. It's like, wow, is there any wonder? And I will say kind of women especially here, but of course the same applies male or female in terms of how your programming's formed. But is it any wonder then that so many, as I say, women in particular, don't maybe have the confidence, don't have such a healthy relationship with money, etc.? Because we've, certainly my generation, we've been raised by mothers and grandmothers who didn't even, just didn't have that same autonomy,
Wow.
with money or independence that we have. So we're getting mixed messages, sort of straight away around, like, yes, so we have this desire for more money, but then we have so many conflicting beliefs, that sit with that. Well, if you want to go and earn more money, you're going to have to sacrifice. It's not that easy.
Hmm.
This is where these kind of things start to kick in as well. And I
Yeah,
think this
yeah.
is what we
Or
need to
maybe that
clean
you're a
up.
bad person. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's another one. Right now, I'm literally actually in the first month of a 3-month prosperity program that literally is focusing completely on money mindset. And interestingly, this was something, so what you just said was something that's been coming up for quite a few people that are doing that work with me, where that's one of the things that they'd learned. That's one of the things that they had heard growing up, right? That kind of like, oh, I've seen what money does to people, and actually that's never meant in a positive way, right? So you
Good point.
see, yeah. And it's kind of, so even if it's not being spelled out, but I mean, we've all heard things like, oh, money's the root of all evil, right? And it's not all about the money, like, and again, we hear these things which have us feel and believe that, like, again, like, it's sending you a message or a signal that it's wrong, there's something wrong with wanting money, it's going to make you somehow a bad person, right? And if
Hmm.
you believe that, well, then the job of your subconscious mind is to protect you. So if there's a belief that it's, somehow, right, you having more money is going to make you a bad person, or suddenly you're going to be judged by others, right? Well, we don't want that. So we might want money, but we don't want to be judged by others. We don't want other people to think that we're bad. And so it's just
Yeah.
fascinating, like, seeing how these things come up. and then getting people to really start to reevaluate that, right? Like that's one of the things that I've really been doing over these last few weeks, as I say, with in this particular program, but just really getting people to look at, well, hang on, is it money that's not good, or is it the individuals themselves, right? Like really, and in a great way, if I guess if I
Mm,
share this, it will help those listening to this episode. If you think about it, right, like you can find, you know, 5, 10 people, right, that like are good people that have got money, right? You could easily think of and find a number of people that have got money that are good people, right? But by the same token, you could just as easily find 5 or 10 people that don't have money that are amazing good people too, right? So again, it's like it's not the money, and we can do the opposite. The opposite is also true. You can look to
yes,
people that have tons of money that aren't very nice people, but you can also find people that have no money that are also not very nice people, right? You know,
very
it's just
true.
it's sort of joining the dots on it of like it's not the money, it's the people. Like let's not go giving, you know, kind of money power it doesn't have. But these are things that we need to kind of like unpick for ourselves and tell ourselves in order to then realize, gosh, so much of what I've been believing about money just isn't true, right?
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. A story is coming to mind, and I'm not going to say that somebody in the older generation of my family said this, and I'm not going to say who it was so that
Yeah.
I don't out them. But anyway, uh, this person had moved into a home in a really nice neighborhood and was going to be able to stay a long time as this person was getting older. And at one point, I was there visiting, and he or she said to me, I live in the rich neighborhood now. And it was with embarrassment. It wasn't a
Oh.
brag. It was like,
Mm.
ooh,
Yeah.
ooh, I don't know if that's okay. First of all, it's just a really nice neighborhood. So
Yeah.
it's not like some, mansion or whatever. But second
Hmm.
of all, why embarrassment? That was
Hmm.
just so enlightening to me that that's the generation in my family that has influenced me,
Yeah.
and just that awareness was important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that comes back to, and this is something to really be aware of and also to notice if you ever catch yourself, because again, we can do it subconsciously, we can do it just automatically. But if you ever catch yourself judging somebody that has money, right? Because you see in that example where we might feel a little bit kind of, oh, don't, oh, it's also a little bit of like, don't brag, don't be too loud, don't show off, isn't it? It's things like this. But
Yes.
always that's coming really from a place of, you know, just, yeah, don't stand out too much because actually that's
Mm,
vulnerable to do that. It's not safe. Like, really, that's kind of the underlying message of like, oh, it's not safe to be seen to be having this money because what will people think? Like, that's almost the unspoken part. What will that's it's like,
yes.
what will other people think? It's the judgment. And we want to be careful then. And this is something else that I was just teaching on recently of if you find yourself judging somebody else, like if you just look, you may not do it out loud, but just in your own head, you might judge someone that's got money. Notice that because your subconscious mind is always listening. So if it notices you doing that, it's kind of like, oh, okay, noted, right? Like, best not like allow her to have too much then, because otherwise, like, now she's going to get judged like this, right? And it doesn't
Wow.
want you to be judged. You see, it's that
Yeah.
type of it's so fascinating. I mean, it's so fascinating, Cheryl. You know, just the crazy ideas, yeah, that we've bought into. That it just that
Goodness.
it's wrong to want money. Like, I think fundamentally, it can come down to that like basic one that so many of us have, you know, kind of learned almost on some level anyway, that we
Yeah.
then need to make our peace with.
That right. And we're going to talk about maybe ideas to start changing that if we
Hmm.
recognize that in ourselves. And before that, though, it was coming to mind that one of the things that really helped me kind of start down the path of changing the way I think about money, and this might have come from you, but I confess I don't remember, is to think about money as energy. And
Mm,
money is going where it's wanted or where it's earned or where it's deserved or whatever the right word is for the situation, but it's just energy. And so
absolutely.
to me, that was kind of cool. And also, I also heard someone say having more money makes us more of who we are,
Yes.
not a bad person or a different, but more of who we are. So
Correct.
more
It's
of
a
a great person,
magnifier.
maybe, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's a magnifier. And I think that's exactly it. It's like, let's bring it back to like reminding ourselves of what money is. It's kind of really just a genius idea, right? Like it's the reward for service, and it makes it so much easier to live in a world where if I want to get my hair cut, but my hairdresser doesn't want mindset coaching, it's kind of like, oh, right, well, I'm stumped because I really need my roots doing. What do you mean? Like, here, let me just coach you for an hour and in exchange do my roots, right? It's kind of, thank goodness we're not in that situation, right? Otherwise, like, yeah, maybe like we'd be going hungry because it turns out the people in the grocery store don't want mindset coaching either. It's just right. But it's like also, thank goodness someone came up with this means of exchange. So
Yes.
we can be like,
Yes.
oh, I've got this thing that's universally acceptable. So like, yeah, here, like you would like this service, great. And it's yeah, that's really all it is. And I think sometimes it helps to just remind ourselves of that because we are the ones, again, as humans, that have given it so much meaning that really it doesn't. It doesn't deserve to have. But you're right, it's a magnifier, and I think it's understanding that it's just going to make you more of who you already are. And so, what a
Yeah.
wonderful thing to know if you know deep down you're a good person and you can do so much more good. You know.
Yes. Absolutely.
Mm, mm,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Okay. So then we've realized maybe we have some issues in our heads about this. So, how can we start to change how we think about or how we view money with those kind of deep seated beliefs?
I think the first step is awareness, right? Like always, it's awareness. It's just being able to see where you currently are and to have a mind open enough, of course, to want to shift and change it, right? But again, if you're looking for the answer to that question, let's assume that that box is already ticked. That's like, yeah, I do want to improve that mindset on my relationship with money. So the first step for sure is awareness. And in fact, as I've just said right there, like the first step if you want to improve your relationship with money, do you know what, one of the best ways that I know, and actually it's quite a fun kind of exercise to do in some respects at least, to really become aware of like, well, where am I currently, what is my current relationship with money, literally kind of, you can be a bit playful with this, but start to think of money as if it literally was your significant other, right? So you are in a relationship with money, like we all are. So you're in a relationship with money right now. If you started to see money as your significant other, what kind of a relationship are you in with money, right? Like, do you really love money? Or is it like, well, sometimes I love it and sometimes not so much. And well, I love you, but you're never around enough. Or like you come, but then you leave really quickly. You're never here when I want you. Right? Can you see? Or like, I kind of want you and like, I kind of feel good about wanting you, but this side of you over here, like if we were talking about, I don't know, like debt or something, now I feel really bad for wanting, like that's not even allowed. Do you know what I mean? And it's just that kind of, oh my God, am I in it? Like, do I need to go to counseling? Am I in a dysfunctional relationship with money here? Or like,
Yeah.
or am I avoiding it? Right? Like, am I deep in avoidance? Am I not paying money any attention? Right?
Mm.
Like, there's so many kind of like facets to this that if you look at it through that lens, it's really fascinating of like, oh my gosh, yeah, you
That's
know?
really interesting. And it
Mm.
makes me realize that I have some more work to do too.
Right. But it's never ending for all of us, this work, right? We always want to be like, okay, let's stay in the work. But yeah, it's a really interesting one, that one. Because
Yeah.
it's also that if we want more, think about it, like if we want more of something, right? And I think actually this is maybe something, if I just even back up a little bit, because I think this was also a thought that really helped me when it comes to money. And it's something that Wallace D. Wattles talks about in his book, The Science of Getting Rich. And he talks about how actually like our want for more of anything, including money, is very much just a natural expression of who we are, right? Like it's that kind of like life force within us that's always for expansion and fuller expression. So how can we become the most of who we are if we are limited in any area of our life? Right? Like we want to be the most healthy. Like if we want to thrive, we want to be healthy, we want to, kind of feel good. Well, having financial freedom is a part of that. Like if we're limited financially, it's going to restrict our ability to thrive in all areas.
Yeah.
So I think it's so important to kind of like, first of all, make peace with that idea of like, of course it's right to want more. It's just part of who I am. And then yeah, look at that relationship. Like, okay, well, let's take a look at my relationship with money, because if I do want more, but I'm not very welcoming, if I kind of resent money, if I feel like it's never there when I need it, etc. Right? Like if that was in a dating relationship, it's like, well, I don't want to stick around her too much, right? She doesn't appreciate me. So yeah, just I think I would say like use that to just shine a bit of a light on what your current relationship's like. And that's the first step, just
Yeah.
the awareness.
Yeah. I think that will help people because these are things that are kind of hidden in there and we don't really think about it
Exactly.
necessarily. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's why that one's such a good tool, because there's almost like nowhere to hide, right? Like you can, and when you look at it in terms of like, oh, well, there's certain aspects of money that I'm okay with, but if there's like, oh, there's an area over here that I'm not so good with, yeah, it highlights it. Yeah.
Yeah. So because you brought up debt, I'm
Hmm.
gonna skip over to that topic for just a
Mm.
minute because here in the US anyway, during this month there are some changes happening with regard to college loans and having to pay back debt. And this is
Okay.
something that just travels with people for 10,
Hmm.
15, 20 years sometimes.
Yeah.
And obviously, there could be debt from a home, there could be credit card debt. I know Americans are pretty well known about having bad credit card debt issues because we like to buy lots of stuff. I don't know if that's true in the UK as well,
Pretty similar, I
but
think. Yeah, I'm sure it is. Yeah.
yeah, we all want the stuff.
Mm.
Um, so I think this idea that debt is bad
Hmm.
or just the worry about it all the time hanging over our heads can become a mindset issue that creates kind of a negative money thing
Yeah.
too. So, do you have any advice about people who are dealing with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so right, by the way, that if you've got that weighing on you, like if that feels like something that's heavy, and it does for a lot of people, because that's, again, that's the message that we all receive, and that's the conditioning and the programming, and we don't question it. So then now, as part of this money relationship that we're in, we've got a lot of shame and judgment that we're carrying around with that. And if we're going to put labels on ourselves, okay, like, well, then we're carrying around a label of, well, I'm not very good with money because, right, like I've got debt, let's say that can be something that,
Mhm.
a judgment that
Mhm.
someone makes for themselves. And, you know, the very first step to being sort of energetically, which is at the heart of a lot of the work I do, but from an energy perspective, the very first step to put yourself in a place where you can attract more money and more prosperity to yourself is you genuinely have to start to feel that way, and feel that way now, not once you get there. And so, of course, this I think is like a big catch 22 for so many people when it comes to debt, because then they're thinking, well, how can I feel prosperous if I've got debt, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah,
Right.
the advice that I give is, as with kind of everything, I guess, that we've been looking at so far, is it's so important to reframe that. It's so important to question some of the beliefs and assumptions you've been making about debt to this point. And so, how can you look at it, okay, sort of in terms of where you are right now? And this isn't a message of saying, oh, hey, like it's okay, just go put more money on your credit card, right? No, you want to be responsible about that, okay? Like that's another key part of this, is being responsible with the money that you've got. But you are where you are. And I think it's so important not to judge yourself. And in fact, you can reframe it. I actually say to my clients, like, actually, how can you be grateful for the balance that's on your credit card statement? Like, you might even want
Mm.
to like stop using the word debt, because there's such a lot of like negative connotation that we just have programmed in. So it could be like, oh, I have financing on a, or I have a balance on a credit
Mm.
card statement, just in the way that I said it then. Okay, how can you feel grateful for it and recognize that that actually is still money that has supported you, right? Like if you can see it like that, because by definition it has. That's, you've had money that you have been able to use, and really it's you're paying for that service. It's still a service that you're receiving from, let's say, your credit card provider, if we're talking about credit card debt. I mean, and also with debt, there's all different types, right? Like very few people feel shame, judgment, or bad about a mortgage. It's kind of
Right.
like, oh, like a mortgage that's hundreds of thousands is actually completely fine. But oh my
Right.
goodness, if I've got some money over here on a credit card statement, well, shame on me, right? And
Right.
so I really think that it's so important for us as individuals. Like this is also part of you taking ownership of your money story, your relationship with money, where what if I just change the way I felt about that? Because I'm telling you, that will clean up your energy where you can see that, like, do you know what? Like, it supported me at that point, right? Like, or it supported me. And it might be, I mean, gosh, I've done this, right? Like, I wouldn't be here today on this episode. Cheryl, you and me wouldn't even know each other because if it wasn't for being able to, invest in myself and put some money on my American Express card, I wouldn't have invested in coaching for myself or invested in getting trained and being mentored by Bob Proctor, right? Like I didn't have that money just sat in savings. And so I made a decision. Great. Like that's something I'm so grateful for because it enabled me to do something that was an investment in myself. So again, no shame on that. I was so grateful and happy to pay for the service of being able to do that, which is really obviously then what you're paying for in interest. So
Right.
just even breaking it down like that. And I think also recognizing that, and maybe this is moving on a bit and it's probably might even overlap a little bit with the call that you've already done on some of the management of money, but also recognizing that you can be responsible and repaying like debt that you might have or credit card bills and things at the same time as you can also be saving a little bit as well, right? And it's just recognizing that just because you've got debt, it doesn't stop you from being responsible with money. It doesn't stop you from saving and having different pots of money in different places. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that for the first thing, sorry, just to kind of go back then, I think the first thing or the most important thing is to shift the way you feel, like release the judgment, release any shame. I just think that's got to go. That isn't serving anybody. I think it's like recognizing, do you know what? No, that was money that supported me, or even still is supporting me. Whilst you're then
When
working on shifting and changing, to a more overflowing state with money.
right. And when you said be grateful for that, I thought in
Mm.
my head, well, how's she going to talk me into this one?
Right.
But I get it. I get it.
Well,
Yeah.
but you see, like how, and I get why your reaction was that too, because once upon a time, I would have been judging myself for that, and I wouldn't have been able to look with gratitude, right? Like gratitude is such a powerful tool, obviously not just in money mindset, but actually particularly in money mindset. It's so powerful because now you're shifting and changing your energy around money because you cannot create a more prosperous life for yourself in any area, but particularly as it comes to money, if you're operating with an energy of kind of like scarcity and lack, and that's what's happening if somebody's like really judging themselves for the debt and feeling bad for the debt, they're really then coming from an energetic state of like I haven't got enough and just that this isn't good and I'm no good with money versus actually I can totally change the way that I'm seeing that.
Yeah. I think that's really going to be powerful. And even just switching the word that we use, what
Mm-hmm.
an interesting idea because words do have power and
Oh,
they have
completely.
meanings that we've attached to them, right? So,
Well, because
yeah.
you're right, we very rarely would go around sort of even like in relation to the homes that we own. And I know in the UK, it might be similar in America, but in the UK in particular, it's such a big culture of home ownership. Um,
Yes.
Nobody feels bad for the mortgage, but you see, it's a different word, isn't it? We don't even use the word debt. So people aren't walking
Yes.
around going, oh my goodness, I've got 300,000 in debt. They're not saying that. It's just like, oh, I've got a mortgage.
Right.
They're
And
great and
that's a
they're
good
grateful for the
thing.
mortgage. Exactly.
Yes.
You're grateful for that. So why can't we be? I think it's knowing, but even here, I want to be careful that I'm not sowing seeds where people are then judging themselves. Um, I just think we've got to be sort of careful, like, really see the difference between the purpose that we are using the money for, right? Like, I mean, that's where we do need to take responsibility. So again, I'm not saying just go and like spend money that you don't have. But I think there are definitely times for people where it's kind of, you know what, I'm taking a responsible decision here, and this is an investment I want to make in myself. And I'm grateful that there is such a thing as either a loan or a credit card that can allow me to do that. And I can pay it off over time. And that's what we're doing with mortgages. So why not do that in other ways to, again, really feel that money gets to support you?